So I came out for decriminalization and legalization of marijuana a while ago. My thinking had evolved. I wasn't originally for it all along, but several things happened. First, a number of states legalized, mainly out west. They legalized recreational use, and it was been a huge success. You saw, all the gloom and doom that all these people said, conservative people, oh, drug use will go up, oh, crime will go up. Well, none of those happened. So people were getting freedom. And then good things happened, because as we know, the war of drugs has been a war on people, particularly people of color. It would pain me to meet people, to hear stories. A young man or young woman was arrested with a small amount of marijuana in his or her pocket. Because of overcriminalization, they'd be charged oftentimes federally. They'd be sentenced to a huge felony because of the overcriminalization, making it a class 1 drug. And their lives would be ruined. They'd be in jail for a long time for nothing. And then when they got out, because they had a major felony against them, it would be very hard to get a job. So that was another thing that decriminalization, legalization would lead to. There was harm throughout the country. And so I felt I ought to come out for criminalization and now use my position as majority leader, decriminalization, to get marijuana legalized. And Senators Booker, myself, and Senator Wyden are working hard on that.
Yes, I agree. I had a very similar experience. The first person to approach me after the 2016 election essentially charged me to go find ways to help all those people in our community who couldn't get jobs because of low-level marijuana charges. At that point, we were having very robust conversations in New York City about stop and frisk, and there were thousands of New Yorkers who had to answer questions about marijuana charges. And oftentimes they were charges, not even convictions, that was the results of stop and frisks. And they had to answer these questions every time they went to apply for a job or to look for housing. And unfortunately, it created obstacles that prevented the individual from fully participating in society. So I was charged by one of my constituents, neighbors, and friends. And so I made sure that I and my office went on and supported the decriminalization and the legalization efforts here in New York.
Well, what you did in New York sets a model for the nation. New York often sets a model for the nation. We're now looking at this Build Back Better plan, which is very broad. But New York State Legislature did a lot of the things that we've included in this plan. And, in the Great Depression, it was the New York City Council and the New York State Assembly, State Senate, who led the way. I think it's the same thing on legalization of marijuana. And we've looked at your law and, the things like encouraging expungement of records, of making sure you reinvest in the communities that were hurt by the war on drugs, restorative justice to communities of color. We put in our bill because you did such a good job. Was it hard? Did it take a long time to get it done?
We've been working on this for a considerable amount of time. I'm going to say at least 8 years, but we finally got it right. And I think that we have included much of what's needed to create a scheme in New York State that is going to really provide accessibility and opportunity for most New Yorkers.
That's great.
Yeah. But I'm going to ask you if you can tell us about the Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act, because that's pretty exciting going on federally, and we're all watching.
Yeah, well, we're Tremaine. We're taking a page from New York's book and trying to do basically what you did nationally. And what it will do is ensure that Americans in all communities won't be arrested or barred from receiving services for using cannabis where it's legal, because the states make it legal. We're ensuring that state compliant cannabis businesses will be able to access the kind of financial services. And we're going to make sure those financial services are available to smaller businesses and communities of color. We don't want the big boys to come in. After all the pain that's been occurring in communities like the one you represented in Brooklyn, where I'm from, to have the big boys come in and make all the money makes no sense. So we want to make sure that smaller businesses and business of color do it. We're going to make it really incentives to have all states expunge their records for nonviolent marijuana crimes. So you never have a criminal record again. You never should have to begin with, you know, for low-level marijuana crimes because it was so overclassified, it was so bad. And we're going to make sure that the money that's made doesn't just go into the federal treasury, but goes into good kinds of activities in terms of restorative justice, dealing with community violence initiatives and dealing with so many other things, community centers and things that will have kids have a great place to go and some hope so they won't get caught up by the drug dealers and anybody else. So we take, a lot of that sounds familiar to you.
It does, it does. I was gonna say, in New York State, this is exciting for a moment for us. This Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act is creating opportunities all across the state. And it's really focusing in and trying to help those who've been harmed by the prohibition on cannabis. We're creating a new industry and we're excited about it. We've expanded the medical program. We're making it easier for people to participate as a patient, as a prescribing doctor, even as a caregiver. No longer are we charging the registration fee. We're reducing the cost to access medicinal marijuana by authorizing the sale of flower and allowing home grow. And we're also fortifying the standards for hemp CBD. That market is booming. We want to make sure that there's regulations so that we can keep it safe and ensure quality.
Tremaine, you know who passed the law legalizing hemp? Me.
Aha, that's right, our senator.
Yes.
And we are building.
It's helping upstate New York with farms and industries and jobs. It's really good.
And that's exactly the type of work that we're hoping to continue with the MRTA. We have the opportunity to really build capacity in New York State. When we talk about access and opportunity, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the growth of an industry that has the potential to create thousands of jobs, good paying jobs,
right?
Those that are skilled labor as well as unskilled. So we really have a place in the market for everybody. Our adult use program, in addition to the hemp, we're rolling out adult use. It prioritizes equity and access. We have 9 license types. We're moving away from monopolies. We're going to say that everybody that wants to participate should have opportunity, and we're going to create a pathway. We're emphasizing micro businesses and cooperatives. And we've also rolled out a license type called consumption locations as well as delivery services. And we're giving 50% of all licenses to our social equity applicants.
That is great. That's what we're trying to do in the federal law too. So let me ask you one more question. What is the toughest part of your new job? What's the biggest problem you face, I guess, the greatest mountain you have to climb over?
At this moment, I think it's going to be education. We've got to educate our public on what the law really is so that they understand how to be compliant. And then as we educate them on what we're trying to do in this industry, we will start to have a more educated consumer that will demand safe, tested, regulated products. And it will help us to actually grow the industry and to make sure that everyone who's participating can succeed and that we're not going to be burdened with the challenges of bad product in the supply chain and that we can weed it out more easily. So I really think that this is our opportunity.
That's great.
To create the right system.
Yeah, you're creating a big road, not just a little path, but a nice wide road that people will find it easy to drive on, so to speak. I'll tell you one more interesting thing before we go. People say, well, do you have a chance to pass this law federally? After all, New York is not America. We're more progressive. The answer is yes. You know, first, we're getting some Republican support in the country. And second, the country is realizing that all the myths about marijuana are just that, myths. So listen to this. South Dakota, one of our most conservative states, they have this thing where you can put an initiative on the ballot, a question on the ballot. We don't have that in New York. And they put it on the ballot, and South Dakota passed legalization. Now, they're one of the 5 or 6 most conservative states in the country. If they can do it, everyone can do it. And then our federal law will let everybody weave in together and work it out right. So I think we got a real shot, and we're going to keep working at it till we get it done.
And I just want to say thank you for your leadership on this issue, because as we're thinking about what new work looks like, as what are people going to be doing in the future and how we right the wrongs of the past, you are leading us on the right path, and we stand 100% with you and behind you.
And I admire what you're doing in New York. In any way I can help you with this wonderful law, MRTA, and its implementation, feel free to call me. After all, we're both Brooklynites.
Exactly.
Nice to see you, Tremaine. Keep up the great
Likewise.
work.
I'll see you soon and thank you again.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Bye-bye.
your work.